The summer of 2024 was supposed to be quiet for Johnny Depp. After years of courtroom battles, televised testimonies, and his name dragged through headlines, he finally felt a calm he hadn't known in decades. In the shadows of Hollywood Hills, behind thick iron gates and Spanish-style archways, Johnny tried to rebuild the only thing he had left, peace. But peace, he would soon learn, was not permanent. She watched from afar. Not in the literal sense, no, not yet. But she was always watching. Amber's career had sunk to near non-existence since the verdict. Her PR team had dropped her, scripts stopped arriving, and even the few friends who once stood by her side vanished. She was no longer a celebrity, she was a liability. And in Hollywood, liabilities don't get work. So she planned. At first, it was subtle. An anonymous social media account launched quietly, posting rare behind-the-scenes clips of Johnny that painted him in a dark, manipulative light. The comments poured in. Some fans doubted it, but others believed. The account gained followers by the hour. Meanwhile, Johnny was working on something pure. A new film, his first independent production, crafted not for box office glory, but to rediscover his soul. It was a story about forgiveness, a theme he believed was long overdue. He cast unknown actors, hired a raw director straight out of New York's theater underground, and decided to shoot in a remote desert town in Arizona. What he didn't know was that Amber had already infiltrated his crew. She paid a young assistant to leak footage. Nothing illegal, just damning. A whispered argument on set. A moment of frustration. A bottle thrown, not at someone, but close enough to suggest rage. Out of context, it was powerful. In the age of the internet, context was a luxury no one waited for. Johnny's new film began to rot before it was even finished. Then came the script leak. A Reddit post titled, "Leaked Depp Film Reveals Troubling Parallels to His Real-Life Abuse Claims," shot to the top of trending charts. Journalists picked it up. News outlets ran it with barely a fact-check. It didn't matter that the film was fiction. It was enough to cast doubt on his intentions. He was being painted all over again, and the strokes were familiar. But Johnny was not the man he used to be. The old him might have spiraled, vanished into French wine and nicotine. This time, he called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. "Vanessa. I know this sounds crazy," Johnny said through the phone, his voice cracked from stress. "But I think she's coming after me again. Not with lawyers. With something worse." Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I warned you she wouldn't let it go." He hung up with a promise to visit her in Paris after the shoot. But that visit would never come. 2 nights later, his hotel room was broken into. Nothing stolen. Except the script. The police report was brief. No signs of forced entry. No surveillance footage. No suspects. Johnny stood in the middle of the hotel suite, staring at the empty drawer where the script had been. That script wasn't just a project, it was his comeback, his redemption arc. Now, it was gone. And worse, someone was already leaking scenes, altered versions. The very next morning, a TikTok went viral. It showed Johnny screaming on set. The audio was distorted, and the footage was cropped to hide the truth. What wasn't shown was the moment before, a light rig crashing down, nearly killing a crew member. His scream wasn't rage, it was panic. But the internet doesn't wait for nuance. The hashtag Depp meltdown started trending. TMZ ran a headline. Johnny's anger issues return on set of redemption film. Sponsors pulled out. Distributors backed away. The studio execs who were quietly watching the film's progress ghosted him. The entire production stalled within 72 hours. In a dark LA apartment, Amber smiled as she read the headlines. She didn't post the video herself. That would be stupid. No, she used layers of proxies. Influencers desperate for a story. Editors who owed her favors from her heyday. Every leak was designed like a chess move, and she was always 3 steps ahead. But one thing she didn't plan for, Johnny hired someone to fight back. Raphael King, a private investigator with more connections in Hollywood than most agents. A former paparazzo turned fixer. He had dirt on everyone, but more importantly, he knew how to find the source behind anonymous content. Raphael visited Johnny late one night, laid out dozens of printed screenshots across a massive oak table, and said one word, coordinated. Johnny picked up a blurry still of a woman in a trench coat, entering the same hotel he stayed in 3 nights before the script went missing. Her face was obscured, but her gait was familiar. "Tell me that's not her," Raphael said. "I haven't seen her in person in 2 years," Johnny muttered. "But, yeah, that's her walk." It didn't matter that Amber had a restraining order against being near him. It didn't matter that she was supposed to be out of the country. This wasn't about legality. This was about destruction. Raphael leaned forward. She's not just trying to ruin your film. She's trying to erase you completely. Professionally. Publicly. Emotionally. Johnny lit a cigarette with shaking hands. He had two choices, disappear again or fight. He chose the latter. He called the desert town back in Arizona and arranged a meeting with the crew. Told them the film was still on. That they would finish it without studio money if they had to. That the world could burn, and they would keep shooting. What he didn't know was that Amber had already begun her next move. A podcast. A tell-all series. Professionally produced. Weekly episodes. All about abuse, gaslighting, and being silenced by power. She never named Johnny directly, but she didn't have to. The insinuations were surgical. Each story, each metaphor, each dramatic pause crafted to drive the internet wild. And it worked. The court of public opinion started to sway again. The sympathy she lost after the trial? Slowly returning. But what Amber didn't know was that someone from her inner circle had turned. A woman named Mara. Her ex-assistant. Someone Amber humiliated and underpaid for years. Mara called Raphael from a burner phone and said 6 words that changed everything. She recorded things. Things you'll want. Mara didn't ask for money. She didn't want revenge. She wanted to be heard, finally. Raphael met her in a dim cafe on the outskirts of Silver Lake. She wore sunglasses even though it was nighttime, and clutched her handbag like it held nuclear codes. When she opened it, it might as well have. 2 USB drives. One green. One black. What's the difference? Raphael asked, arching an eyebrow. Mara smirked. Green is her voice. Black is her ego. He didn't get it until he pressed play. Amber's voice filled the speakers. Not staged, not polished, just raw behind-the-scenes venom. Her talking about taking him down, mocking Johnny's mannerisms, even rehearsing fake tears before podcast recordings. At one point, she laughed and said, if he thinks court was the end, oh baby, we're still in Act 2. Raphael's hands trembled. This was it. Not just hints or rumors, this was evidence. Meanwhile, Johnny was in Arizona, knee-deep in dust and dialogue, trying to hold a broken production together with duct tape and caffeine. His director had quit. His cinematographer went MIA after a mysterious anonymous threat email. The food truck ran out of anything vegan. And the lead actor got food poisoning from a questionable taco truck labeled Authentico with a sharpie. Maybe she hexed the tacos, Johnny muttered, standing in 112 degrees Fahrenheit heat, wearing a vintage leather jacket because it looked better on camera. The crew chuckled. It was the first time anyone had laughed in days. Then Raphael called. Listen, Captain Sparrow, he said, always unable to resist a nickname. You better sit down. Actually, don't. You might need to dance. He explained everything. The recordings, the plan, the timing. They'd released the first leak not through Johnny, too obvious, but through a third-party feminist journalist who was already on the fence about Amber's credibility. And it worked. The internet lost its mind. Clips of Amber's fake crying rehearsal went viral. Twitter turned savage. Memes exploded. One showed her behind a curtain with the caption, "Crocodile tears loading." Another featured Johnny sipping wine with the words, "Defamation who?" Late-night shows roasted her. Amber Heard's podcast just hit #1, Jimmy Kimmel said. Right next to fiction and fantasy. Johnny stayed silent. That was the plan. Let the truth speak, not him. But Amber wasn't done. She appeared on a morning talk show, unscripted, and tried to cry. Only this time, people zoomed in on her eye. It didn't blink. The internet called it the AI glitch. Mara's second leak, more recordings, dropped 2 days later. One captured Amber mocking domestic abuse survivors. It crossed a line. Even her former allies turned their backs. Brands dropped her faster than crypto in 2022. Movie offers? Gone. The podcast? Canceled mid-season. But Johnny wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Because the third file, the one Raphael hadn't dared open, held something else entirely. A video. One shot in secret. Amber meeting with a man in Prague. A known fixer. Eastern European. No Hollywood ties. What the hell is this? Raphael whispered. Mara looked at the floor. She told me if the internet couldn't destroy him, she'd use something old school. Like what? Mara's face darkened. Like fire. Back in Arizona, Johnny's set trailer caught flames in the middle of the night. At 3:42 a.m., the sky above the Arizona desert lit up like a rock concert from hell. Johnny's trailer, his sanctuary, his creative cave, his glorified storage unit full of half-written lyrics and way too many scarves, was on fire. The flames danced like Amber's lawyers in court, loud, messy, and fueled by pure chaos. Crew members ran with water bottles. A guy named Craig tried to fight the fire with an acoustic guitar. I panicked. He later said, and Johnny stood barefoot in pajama pants and a vintage Doors tee, watching the blaze with an eerie calm. He didn't scream. He didn't curse. He just muttered, well, at least now the critics won't call it a cold performance. Raphael arrived 6 hours later in a dust-covered black Jeep, still eating a gas station burrito and cussing about GPS directions. Your set is literally off the grid, he grumbled. Like, FBI witness protection level off the grid. He handed Johnny a flash drive. This is everything. Every leak. Every call. Every conversation Mara ever recorded. It's enough to end her. Johnny took it, stared at it like it held a detonator. You sure we want to go nuclear? Raphael raised a brow. She lit your damn trailer on fire. What's next? Poison your cologne line. They both paused. Johnny, that'd be evil. Raphael, I know. It's her. Johnny uploaded the files, not to TMZ, not to Twitter, but to a private investigator-turned-YouTuber who had 5 million subscribers and a reputation for taking down celebrities with shady pasts. His name? Brick Justice. Yeah, that's real. Brick dropped a 43-minute video titled, Exposed, The Amber Files, How Hollywood's Queen of Chaos Tried to Destroy Johnny Depp. Again, it hit 10 million views in a day. Johnny's name trended again, but this time, as a hero. Reactions poured in. I believed her. I was wrong. She faked everything. The crying. The podcast. The freaking fire. This is a movie. Someone give Depp the Oscar just for surviving her. Amber released a weak statement about deep fakes and manipulated audio, but it was too late. Her credibility was toast, just like Johnny's trailer. And in the middle of this circus, Johnny got a call from Tim Burton. You free next month? Tim asked. We're rebooting Sleepy Hollow, and we need someone who understands how to survive the flames. Johnny chuckled. Do I get to wear a hat? Of course, Tim replied. Maybe even two. Suddenly, calls started flooding in. Netflix. At 24. Even some weird indie studio in Finland offering a Viking role. Hollywood smelled blood, and nothing sells better than a comeback soaked in fire and scandal. Still, Johnny wasn't smiling just yet. Because the prog fixer? He wasn't done. The man's name was Dmitry Volkov, former Russian intelligence. Now a private problem solver. He didn't work for fame or attention. He worked for the highest bidder. And Amber still had money. Raphael found an encrypted message on one of the hard drives Mara left behind. It was a plan. A final move. Target. Johnny's daughter. The sun was just beginning to rise over the California coast when Johnny got the call. He hadn't slept, not really, for weeks. The fire, the leaks, the revenge, it all felt like a fever dream wrapped in a conspiracy thriller with a twist of tequila. But this made his blood go cold. It was Lily Rose. The voice on the phone was deep, accented, and far too calm for the words it carried. If you want her safe, Mr. Depp, you'll need to stop all media, all retaliation. Delete the files. Disappear. Or your daughter. Well, accidents happen, don't they? Click. He froze. This wasn't a smear campaign anymore. This was real. This was war. He called Raphael. I hope you're calling to tell me you're finally buying a security system, Raphael answered. Someone just threatened my daughter. Raphael didn't speak. Not for 5 whole seconds. Then, all right. We go full Liam Neeson. Within 24 hours, Lily Rose was pulled from her shoot in Paris and flown to a hidden safe house in Big Sur, guarded by 2 former Marines and a pit bull named Winston. She was confused, furious, and texting Johnny things like, what the hell, Dad? Am I in a Mission Impossible sequel? But Johnny couldn't risk it. Amber had gone too far. And so had the man she hired, Dmitry Volkov. Ex-KGB, allegedly killed a Serbian arms dealer with a pin. And now? He was stalking Johnny's family over podcast drama and court revenge. Hollywood has seen many things. But a former movie pirate going head-to-head with a rogue Russian mercenary to protect his daughter? That was new. Raphael called in favors from places even Google couldn't map. A dark web whistleblower. A retired Interpol analyst. A guy named Chuck who once hacked a satellite to impress a girl. They found Volkov. He was staying in a mansion in the Hollywood Hills, rented under a fake name, but owned by a shell company connected to Amber's old legal team. Coincidence? Please. Johnny wanted to go in. Raphael said no. But Johnny insisted. Let me remind you, Johnny said, sliding on a ring. I did 9 Pirates movies and learned exactly 2 useful sword moves. That's one more than I need. They didn't go in with weapons. They went in with a plan. A plan involving faked emails, forged bank statements, and a staged leak that made it look like Amber had turned on Volkov and was planning to rat him out. The Russian took the bait, and when he tried to flee LA the next morning, Interpol, tipped anonymously, grabbed him at LAX. Amber, seeing it all unravel, made one last attempt to control the narrative. She tried to sue Johnny again for emotional damage due to the digital harassment campaign. This time, the judge didn't even let it hit trial. Case dismissed. With prejudice. Johnny stood outside the courthouse that day, not with a crowd or a press team, but with Lily Rose and Raphael. Just the three of them. You know, Raphael said, if you ever get bored of acting, I hear Liam Neeson's got a gig opening. Johnny smiled. Not his movie star smile. A real one. The kind he hadn't worn in years. Let's hope I never get that bored. The internet exploded again. But this time, not with hate, with love. Fans rallied. Hollywood bent the knee. His film? Bought by A24 in a record deal. His daughter? Offered her own role in the sequel. And Amber? Vanished from the public eye. Some say she's hiding in Europe. Others say she changed her name and lives in a yoga commune in Bali. A few conspiracies say she's working on a new podcast under a voice-changed alias. But Johnny doesn't care anymore. He's got his name back. He's got his family. And somewhere deep in the desert, he's back on set, filming again, the dust in the air, the sun on his face, and no fires behind him. Only light ahead. The end.